So Hytale's looking to hire from the community, designers and modders to design the game's automation system. And in this tweet from Simon, he lays out for us what he is looking for. And while I'm no professional designer and definitely not a modder or somebody who knows code, I have what I believe would be the best system for Hytale to add to the game. And I wanted to lay it out here for you and for the Hytale team. I know not everybody's going to love every aspect of it. That's 100% okay. But drop me your thoughts of either my proposal or what you personally would like to see down in the comment section down below. I am eager to read everything that you guys put down. Continuing on though, Simon did lay out what the Hytale team is looking for in this automation system, something physics driven, real physical parts like gears, shafts, belts, rotation, power generation, along with logic in a way that players can assemble, break, and optimize. Additionally, and this part is important as well, he wants something that feels like a natural fit to the game, something easy for players to engage with at a small scale, meaning that it's beginner friendly, but also something with depth and complexity for players that enjoy going down that road. In some reply posts, he even added that magic could definitely be part of this system and NPCs could be playing a role in it as well. So in reading this post, I was instantly intrigued, mostly because I enjoy design, thought experiments, and especially the challenge of trying to fit all of these requirements into a single system. And while I put my odds at getting such a position at about 0%, I won't let that ruin my fun and actually giving this a little bit of thought. So I want to preface this by saying what I'm about to describe to you here is just enough to give you a solid idea of my direction, to understand my guiding principles of design, but I'm fairly flexible in many of the specifics of execution. So don't take this as a holistic proposal, but the beginnings of a direction to go down. So first thing I want to lay out is what my personal guiding principles are with this design. It's the foundation in which I will follow and base my decisions around. The foundation of these machines will be mechanical and steampunk inspired. These machines need to be magically powered, since magic is a key part of the world, such as the essences that we collect in the game. Mechanically and magically functional, meaning that physical interaction between, say, a mechanical arm and something being picked up or moved doesn't always need to happen. We can use magic in some of these spaces as well, mixed with the physical part. And then finally, NPC assisted, where we will have NPCs able to complement functionality of these machines, but not replacing entirely everything that they can do. You'll see what I mean in one of my design elements that I speak on later. So with those out of the way I like to think about design for something like this is starting from the end result and then working my way back to the beginning, rather than trying to think up all the parts first, then figure out what they do. So what are some functions that need to be completed? I'm not going to name all of the ones I came up with. I'll scroll them on screen for you instead. But some examples are going to be farming, where you need to water, fertilize, and pick crops, and then collect items, maybe even plant them as well. And another would be transportation, moving items around or moving a player around, and what sort of things would we want to be able to do within that. So here's where we start breaking this down into larger components, and then we're going to figure out how we can maybe break these larger components down into smaller ones. Give some clear uses for them, but also allow players to figure out other ways to use them if they want to. We want player ingenuity to be a big part of this. So my first idea here, and I'm going to actually build this out. This is a copy of my survival world where I have a big farm. It's a little incomplete, but you'll get the idea. So my first idea is a track system, but not something like a simple mine cart, but more think like a monorail, something that you could either put up in the air, suspend it in the air, like this example I've given here, or you could put it on the ground as well, and then have something go along the track that way too. But this monorail system would be a method in which your machines can travel if you want them to. This rail system would need to be powered, so it would have a power source. We're just going to go ahead and call this our power source for now. And this power source would connect up to the rail system via either just a single component, or there could even be multiple components to do it. Now, this power source isn't going to infinitely send power down. You are going to need this component that I'm going to call an arcane booster. Basically, it'll take this signal and it'll boost it back out up to full. The signal is full all the way up until this point. So let's say it travels 15 blocks. This is the 15th block right here. So the signal would be a full signal up to block 15. But once it goes to block 16, the signal can't really travel anymore. So we would need one of these arcane boosters to go right here. It would then pick that signal up and then send it back out in full again. So that would be our rail. We have a few arcane boosters here to make sure that signal stays full. And the way that the power system works is your power just travels all the way through this. Your magical energy travels all the way through from one end to the other. It starts out here and it makes its way all the way down. All magic is flowed through this and calculated from this, which I'll get into in a second. Now, with how I've attacked this design so far, I found that we need a power source for my first machine-based idea. And this power source is going to be called Arcane Essence. It's going to be basically what the whole world of Orbis is made out of, the whole universe is made out of. Think of it kind of like the Force or midichlorians in Star Wars for all my fellow nerds out there. In this case, you could process all other essence types, void, life, fire, ice, water, etc., into Arcane Essence through some sort of component. So think like you feed these items into a magical shredder generator and it turns those essences into Arcane Essence. This Arcane Essence is not an item though, like the current essences are. Instead, think of it like the charge to a battery. So when you convert the physical essences into this Arcane Essence or magical energy, it needs to be stored in a block. So think of this like an arcane battery, a magical battery. So maybe there will be numerous sizes of this magical battery. So as you progress through the game, you can get this bigger and better. So as you progress through the game, you can get bigger and better batteries to make storing your Arcane Essence easier. You could then break this magical battery block and you can store it in a chest, carry it around in your inventory or whatever, and it'll retain whatever charge that it has, ready to be used as an energy source in your world. Now this part I'm flexible with a little bit. I know a lot of people like this kind of thing, so I'm going to include it as a side idea as part of it. But maybe a beginning way of harvesting energy is through traditional physical methods. Think water mills, wind turbines, and things like that. They can maybe harvest smaller amounts of this power and can convert that power into the Arcane Essence because again, the whole world's made of it, so it's magic. We can make it make sense, right? I will note that everything that is machine powered and automation wise, it would require this Arcane Essence to be used. There's no switch, no button, no block that you can sit down that just gives you an infinite amount of energy. You have to obtain this Arcane Essence, and the game can be balanced appropriately to give you what feels like proper amounts of it based on what stage of the game you're in and the amount of effort that you put into getting it. So now I want to give you an example of a machine in automation. We're going to use our crop field here as an example. So first of all, crop fields are normally pretty large. Mine may be larger than most, but generally your crop fields are kind of large. So while you could set up an individual component to do this, I'm about to give you the example here in a second. You could set up this component and put it, right here where this light is, and then have it do the thing for you within a certain area, maybe a few blocks out or something like that. Honestly, the optimal way would probably be to use something like a track where you can have this one component travel down and do both sides for you. You're going to end up using a lot less components that way. So for the machine, Simon said he wants this thing to be parted out. So my initial idea is that we have one or maybe multiple different kinds of components, right? Maybe this is one component that does certain things. Maybe this is another component that does certain things. But my idea was that this component, this core base component, would be mechanical in look and design, right? It would have gears that are turning or just in general have that steampunk machine type of feel. And you could plug in components on any side of this machine. So I could plug in a component on this side that does one thing. I could plug in a component on this side that either does the same thing or a different thing. Basically, I get to customize my machine to do what I want it to do. This guy is almost the block that kind of generates the power. It converts that magical energy, and the parts are where these magical energies come out of to do specific things. So each part does its own specific thing. All 6 sides could be able to have a part. So in the example I'm going to use here, maybe the top part is a little bit that attaches the component to a rail and allows that to go up and down the rail. So in our example here, we would have a machine that sits up here, and then it's going to have its like harvesting parts on this side and this side. Think of it working this way. When you, the player, go to pick a crop, you press the, I think F button is the default. I've changed mine to E. You press the harvest button and it harvests the crops for you. So this part that goes on the sides here would basically do that. It's going to harvest it for you. Now it's going to be a lot more interesting than it is when you do it. When you just click the E button, we're going to have magical particles come out and then pick multiple crops at a time. So you could have maybe 3 or 5 little magical like trails lead down to the crop and pick it. And then that's when it pops up out of the ground. This is basically your equivalent to like normal machines having like a mechanical arm come out and then touch and then pick the crop. But instead of only being able to do one at a time or having to make that mechanical arm move like really fast or something kind of weird that wouldn't look right, instead, the magic, we can pretty easily have numerous magical essences come out and pick the crops for us and have it look really cool. And again, remember I mentioned that on top of this, there would be a part that connects the machine to a rail. So again, you're designing your own machines. In this case, our part goes on top of the machine. If we had the rail on the bottom, the part would go on the bottom of the machine. Now this machine, it would just travel up and down the rail. And another part that we would probably need, this would be like our driver block. And basically what this would be is what controls the rail. So what I mean by that is you could interact with this in some way, maybe pressing the use button or clicking it with something, and you could actually change the speed in which the rail operates. So you can make the rail go really fast, go really slow. Maybe you could even make it have a pause. Maybe one of the options you flip through, the machine will go a block and then stop, and then go a block and then stop. So we can have a few different options here to customize how your rail works. I find this will be important because in some instances like this one, I might want the rail to go kind of slow. But if I use the rail for personal travel where I'm going to be in some type of a device that travels across it, I might want it to go really fast. Now, this could also just be in the form of different machine or different like parts that go up here. So there could be one that's like super fast. There could be one that's super slow. So we could do it different ways. What's important is that we have that level of control over it though. And the way this process works is this battery right here, this magical battery would be having its energy drawn up to this machine through whatever connection method that we use, maybe some additional parts that are required to connect the two, or maybe they just sync together via the magic. And this guy is then communicating with the rail. And then also this machine and its parts are communicating with the rail as well. So what will happen is every block that this machine moves will draw magical energy from the battery. And then also every crop that this machine picks will also draw magical energy from the battery. So all of this stuff draws energy from the battery. And the balance point is up for debate in terms of how long a battery will last compared to the machine or machines running. But I would imagine you would be able to run your machines for quite a while off of a single full battery, several in-game days, if not longer. So this machine, it's picking our crops for us now, but it's not actually collecting them. So maybe we have a big field of eternal crops, right? And that's what I have here in my field right now. They don't need to be replanted, but something needs to collect the drops and the essence of life for us. So now we could have another machine do this, and maybe there will be, but for this example, I actually want to focus on the NPC assisted side of things. This is the perfect opportunity to introduce an NPC. Maybe we can ask a Quebec to follow us back to our base and come work for us. We could tell the Quebec to pick up drops for us and place them in a drop-off bin or a chest. This Quebec will have sort of a social or happiness system to it though. So if you just simply put it to work and do nothing else, he's not going to be very happy. So he's not going to work as often, or maybe he'll work slower. And some of the items that he picks up won't make it to the drop-off chest. Let's say he picked up 100 items, maybe only 60 or 70 of them make it back to the drop-off chest from this unhappy Quebec. But you can make him happy by building him a small house, giving him a bed, and giving him a chest with food that he likes in it. Maybe even lighting the area up to make it so he can see better at night, or giving him certain decorations that he likes, and that'll make him happier as well. The idea is the happier this Quebec is, the faster that he works and the less that he wastes. So a fully happy Quebec would have literally zero waste, and he would work on a very regular schedule. This makes our NPCs very intuitive, and just like your machines need magical power to operate, your Quebecs or whatever other NPC we use here needs things to operate efficiently as well. This gives players something to do other than just lock up the NPC and forget about it, and makes your worlds more live and more interactive. I didn't think of many other machine examples, but I do have one. Think of a common machine that we have in games and mods, a conveyor belt. Now, the way a conveyor belt works in games is usually you're going to have items get fed into the conveyor belt some way. There'll be some type of thing here that shoots the items out or is moving the items into this area or whatever. And then the items will move along the belt to make it to a second point where those items are then collected into something. Now, in our system here, I think we could have a physical conveyor belt. We could have that mechanical moving thing for people that like that look better. Or as a different optional example. The conveyor belt, since it's all physical and is only using magical energy to move the physical parts, it wouldn't use a whole lot of magic. So it would be more battery efficient. It'll also be a little bit more costly though, even though the materials may be somewhat easy to get. It's going to require a lot of physical materials to make every single little conveyor part for the item to travel all the way down. But again, we want magical solutions as well. So just kind of imagine here for me, what we have is we have a kind of another conveyor belt style system, but we have these blocks set up, and maybe they have to have a little bit of a base to them to set up. But instead, what we're doing is we're using magic to move our items instead. So imagine that these little sticks in the air right here, picture those as being magical particles, and then also items that are traveling. So you have these little magical particles that float between point A and point B and point C here, because we need this because our magic can only go a certain distance. So every so often you're going to have one of these like connector points, but your items would actually float from these different points inside of these particles. So you could actually see the items floating around and floating across. This would allow us to more easily get off the ground like this and require less physical components, because you don't have to craft every single little part of the belt. You just have to have the machines here that send the items. Now, the drawback to this would be it's using a lot more magical energy. So you're using up more of your battery, and maybe these parts right here, or these machines, are a little bit more expensive than these machines are. So individual parts are more expensive, but overall the system may cost less, but it uses more magical energy. This could just give a cool, different stylistic look. It could also be functional in a way. I could see the items floating across and see, oh, I kind of want that item right there. And I could grab it right there from the beam, which would be really cool. I guess you could probably do that right here as well. And it would basically give us a magical version of this. It pretty much does the same thing, but does it in a different way, and stylistically is a lot different and fits the world of Hytale better for what we're looking for. Now, the important thing here is, are we meeting all of Simon's design goals? Well, we have physical parts, we have physics, kind of. Luckily, magic can bend the rules of physics for us a bit. We have power sources, not much for logic yet, but this could easily be added as physical machine components within the system. Maybe a component that can see the charge of a battery, or a component that can see another component working. We can have stuff like that included. We have a system that is not required to use. You can still manually do everything like you do today. And let me give you some examples of how this could be small scale and easy versus have some real depth and complexity. So as the player for farming crops, you have several options. You could do everything manually and never interact with automation at all, a lot like you do today. You can set up a couple rail systems, kind of like the one we have right here, plug up a battery that you charged up with arcane energy from Essence of Life from your crops, and then every so often you can run across and pick up the crops manually, or you could add in an NPC and build them a little house, get them the things to make them happy, and then let your farm be fully automated outside of you needing to bring it power every so often, or give your Quebec or NPC some food every so often once they run out. Or you could build some other farm that is really power efficient. Let's say I don't know what this is, I don't have an example, but let's say there's a farm that generates a lot more power than it uses. And I set that farm up over here in this area of my base, right here in this spot. And through the use of other machines and components that we're going to add into the game, this little like battery factory, let's call it, we're going to have this farm is generating energy automatically get put into batteries, and those batteries automatically get moved over to a battery storage area back here, let's say, and all of our batteries are getting stored over here. And then over here in my farm, I have a whole bunch of these rails all set up with batteries, and I have a way to detect when those batteries run out. So the process can end up being that these machines run until the batteries die. When the battery dies, we have something that detects that dead battery, removes the dead battery, puts it onto a conveyor belt, physical or magical, sends the dead battery all the way out over here to our battery generator, where those batteries can be recharged. And then when that battery is pulled out, the system sees, okay, there's no battery. And then over here, where our battery storage area is, the magical battery then gets pulled in and inserted back in, and our machines can continue to run. So I've explained to you the range in which a player could interact with this. You could go from manually doing everything I think I mentioned earlier, you could just have a single component hooked to a single battery to harvest a small area and set up a whole bunch of them. You could set up a rail system where you go through and just replace the batteries on your own whenever they run out. You could add in an NPC if you wanted to pick up the crops for you and put them in a chest. Or you could go full-blown automation where you're generating your own power on site and you're automatically connecting and disconnecting batteries and having everything be automated top to bottom. Now, these are just some examples of workings. There's a lot of other things we could do too. We could have elevators, lifts. We could have big automated doors and block swappers and all sorts of different things that you see in other blocky games like Minecraft or Core Keeper or other games that have these sort of automated systems in them. We can have things that do more than just functional stuff. We could also have many aesthetic parts of this too, all of it requiring magic and you the player keeping things as manual or automated as you want to. The idea here and what this will do is every player can play different, and there's dozens of different ways to do the same thing. I could set up this farm in dozens of different ways and do it differently every single playthrough, or players of every single play type can find the way to do things that they like. This keeps the game interesting because every playthrough ends up being different, and there's so many different ways of doing things that you never feel like you're doing the same thing in the world all over again. From here, I'm sure you can imagine how this would expand out. We could have something that goes through and picks apples from trees, or maybe it shakes the tree and knocks the apples down to the ground. This was a sunflower field. We could have something that picks our sunflowers. We have a chicken coop over here. That could be something that gets our eggs out of the chicken coop. We have an area that's going to be intended to have a bunch of sheep in it. We could have something that automatically shears our sheep for us. Right now, there's not much for fishing in the game, but we have these fishing traps. We could have something that baits and picks our traps until we get a fishing system, and then maybe the automation interacts with that fishing system in different ways. We have this area over here that I've been collecting marble from. We could have something that automatically mines and collects the blocks for us. The possibilities are endless here, and everything can be balanced in a way that feels like you have a proper amount of effort being put into the amount that you get out of it. Nothing should feel super crazy overpowered. You shouldn't be able to automatically farm infinite numbers of everything at the beginning of the game. It should be something that you slowly work to over time, and late enough in the game with enough effort, you can then get the spoils of those efforts by automating maybe almost everything in your world as you work up through the progression in the game. So what we've ended up with is this: a physical, mechanical-based system that is powered by magic and can harness that magical energy to interact with the physical world. We have a role for NPCs to be lower tech solutions to fill in some of the gaps of automation. Our automation could be very closed off, only set up to perform a specific task in a very simple way, or it could be a small part of a huge working system, meaning that players of any type, experience, age, and knowledge can potentially use these machines in some way and tinker around to figure out how they work in a very logical way. This is where I'd like to know, what do you think? Would you enjoy a system exactly like this inside of Hytale? Would you change a few things around? Or do you have some completely different ideas of your own that you'd like to share? If you enjoyed this video and vision, let YouTube and Hytale know by clicking the like button for me, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos and live streams. Use code PROWL8413 when buying Hytale or anything in-game or through servers that you may play on if you'd like to further support my Hytale content. And for now, it's time for me to Hytale it out of here, and I'll see you out there in Orbis. Goodbye.